I say this often, you can't budget behavior you refuse to acknowledge. Mistake number 5 is ignoring emotional spending triggers. Now, listen, most budgets, in my experience, they don't fail because the math is wrong. They fail because the emotions driving the spending were never addressed. And I don't care how beautiful your spreadsheets are with all the color and the formulas, you can't spreadsheet behavior. So, why does this get ignored? It's because we don't like to call spending emotional because it sounds irresponsible. Sometimes emotional spending can sound, you think it sounds like impulsive shopping sprees at the mall or at a dealership. But emotional spending doesn't always look dramatic. Sometimes it looks like being tired. Sometimes it looks like convenience. And sometimes it looks as simple as I deserve this. Now, let me be clear. This doesn't make you reckless, it makes you human. So let's take, for example, the late night scroll. This one hits hard because I think a lot of people fall into this category where it's late, you've handled work, you've taken care of all of your responsibilities that happen after work. Your family is taken care of, everyone is taken care of but you. You sit down, you start scrolling, and the next thing you know, you done bought something you didn't plan to. Not because you needed it, but maybe because you were bored or stressed or emotional. Now, this wasn't necessarily an impulsive buy. It's not an irresponsible buy. It honestly is predictable. What do I mean by that? Let's talk about the stress week spike. I see this pattern in bank statements all the time, mostly because when I talk to clients, they don't really recognize that they have emotional spending triggers. But these spending spikes don't happen randomly. They happen during stressful weeks or when there's a hard meeting or family stuff, emotional overload, and then money becomes the relief. And I'm going to tell you, relief gets real expensive when it is unplanned. Maybe you are a celebration spender. What do I mean by that? Good news comes in, you survive something hard, you accomplish something big, and then spending becomes the reward. But if every win costs money, then progress starts to feel heavy. So I'm going to tell you the truth, and it's going to feel a little heavy, but it's not judgmental, I promise you, okay? Your emotions don't disappear when you budget, they just show up anyway. And if you don't plan for them, they will plan for you. So fine. Now you all agree. We're all here. We recognize that we have emotional spending triggers, right? We fall into one of those categories we talked about before. So what's the fix, right? Especially if I just said that you can't budget for them, they're going to show up anyway. Well, here's the deal. It's not necessarily restriction. You need to just be more aware. So, step 1, I want you to label the emotion and not the category. Look at your last 5 non-essential purchases. And then don't label them like you normally would by putting them in the food category or in a shopping category. I want you to think about what was going on when you made those purchases and how you felt. Maybe you were stressed, bored, tired. Maybe this was a celebration that was unplanned, right? Or maybe you were avoiding something. Those patterns will start to show up real fast when you do this exercise, but you have to be honest and be clear when you're looking at those charges. Step 2, I want you to create a pause replacement. Now, again, this is not about restriction or not spending. Rather, I want you to replace the moment, meaning give yourself maybe like a 24 to 48-hour delay before actually purchasing something. I often suggest creating a spending cap, right? Because you're going to spend the money. Some of you could actually afford to spend it, but cap it, right? Having a comfort fund that already has limits is going to set you up for success. You're not going to remove the relief, you just want to manage it better. And then step 3. This is the one where people don't necessarily agree with the importance of it, and that's giving yourself a permission line. Budget for being human. Add a line for convenience. Add a line for fun. Be intentional with emotional spending. Give yourself some limits though, because pretending you won't have emotions throughout the month is why your budget falls apart. So now listen, these triggers are just clues that will give you control. And then the control comes from anticipation, not restriction. Your budget will work every single time when you anticipate and account for the behavior, not when you restrict and then deny yourself it. Does that make sense? So, if this was a mirror for you, meaning you see yourself really clearly in this one, there is no shame, there's no condemnation. I just want to challenge you to stop pretending that emotions aren't a part of your budget and then integrate them into your budget. So, again, take a look at your last five non essential purchases and then name the emotion behind each one of them. If that same emotion shows up more than once, that's not a flaw. That's a pattern that you now can plan for. So, no, you don't need more willpower. You don't need more restriction. You need a plan that works on hard days too, not just the good ones. Now, I'm going to be honest. Most people start recognizing emotional spending and they usually think, okay, I just need to be more aware. I have a plan. And then they stop there. Think about it. If awareness was enough and it worked, why do so many people who still overspend early in the month panic at the end? That will bring us to mistake number six. Mistake number six is budgeting monthly when your money actually moves weekly. Most people create a monthly budget, but they live week to week. So even when the numbers are right, the timing is wrong. And this feels normal because monthly budgeting feels organized. You sit down once, you make a plan, you feel accomplished, but your money doesn't wait a month to be spent. It leaves in small decisions, and that happens daily, weekly. And when the timing doesn't match the plan feels broken. Think about it, what happens when you create your budget. The first week of the month looks great. Your groceries are stocked, your bills are paid, you're feeling confident. And then by week three, you're checking your account a little more often. And by week four, you're stressed. Full on frustration has kicked in, and you're wondering what in the world went wrong. Nothing went wrong. You just went too fast. I remember when I first started budgeting, and there was what I call this payday spike. Payday would hit, and it would feel like a relief. So my spending started to spike. I would catch up on things that I was behind on. I would upgrade. And then I finally started saying yes to things that I would put off. And without realizing it, I was spending future weeks' money. That wasn't me necessarily overspending, it was mistiming. Then there was the next month promise that would start to show up. That's when I would tell myself, next month I'll do better. But then next month would come and it started looking exactly like this month. And that was because the structure didn't change, only my intention for it changed. The truth is, budgets don't fail because people spend too much. Not all the time. Sometimes, yes, but most of the time, that's not why they fail. They fail because people spend too fast. And timing matters just as much as the amount whenever you're budgeting. So here's the fix. And it's not about restriction. Again, it's about the pacing. So, step one, break your monthly numbers into weekly targets. Take a flexible category like groceries, gas, personal spending, and then divide it by the number of weeks in the month. Now you have a weekly target that you can focus on, not just this monthly hope I spend this, and if not, if I go over, we'll just adjust next month. This will give you your spending some speed limit. Step two, create a weekly money check in. I recommend, especially for the first 6 months until this becomes a habit, that once a week for 10 minutes, you check your balances. I typically recommend doing this on a Tuesday morning because on Monday, most charges from the weekend are still processing. But this gives you an opportunity for you to adjust early and not too long after the damage is done. These small corrections and pivots is going to help to prevent big stress at the end of the month. Step three is to pause right after payday, meaning give yourself 48 to 72 hours after payday before spending discretionary funds. This will help to stop the emotional spike that throws off the rest of the month. I cannot stress this enough. Awareness tells you what happened, structure tells you when to adjust. And this type of structure is exactly what you need to make consistency possible with your budgeting. Now, if I'm going to be honest, this is where people get discouraged. Their budget looks fine on paper, but it doesn't help them to make decisions in real time. So, if this is something that you can relate to, I do want to challenge you to stop trusting your budget if you only look at it once a month. You have to pick a category and give it a weekly limit. And I would do this to all of the categories. Give them a weekly limit starting this week. And if you're already over that limit, don't stop, don't quit, don't say budgeting didn't work, just adjust and then plan differently during next budget meeting. You don't need more discipline, you don't need more restriction, you need better pacing. Now, once people slow their spending down and they finally feel some breathing room, there's something that they can't ignore anymore. If your budget is finally working, then why does debt still feel like it's holding me hostage? And that's going to bring us to mistake number 7. Mistake number 7 is treating debt like background noise. It's there and it's loud. You know it's there, but instead of dealing with it directly, you just live around it. Minimum payments are getting made, statements don't really get looked at, and then debt becomes something you coexist with instead of confronting. Now, this one isn't about irresponsibility, it's about being exhausted. Debt feels heavy. And when something feels heavy for too long, avoidance starts to feel like relief. So people tell themselves, at least I'm not late, at least my credit isn't terrible. And while that sounds responsible, it really says that debt is in control. Now, I hear this part all the time. I pay all my minimums. I'm doing what I'm supposed to do. And yes, paying your minimums, that does matter. But the minimum payments does not mean you're managing debt. That means you're maintaining it. And maintenance is not progress. Now, listen, I want you to come in close. I want to talk directly to you about these buy now, pay later programs. Y'all, I get it. It doesn't feel like debt because the payments are small. It feels very temporary, right? But then you look up and you got 4 or 6 plans running at the same time. And now cash flow is tight and the flexibility you once had is now gone. And now you're managing payments instead of your money. Y'all, we've got to get this under control. Then there is the promise that we make ourselves once things settle down, or I get my bonus, or I get the raise, or I get this refund, or I get this new client, then I'll focus on debt. But debt doesn't wait for calm seasons, it creates pressure in every season. So later never really comes because you're feeling the stress and the pressure of that debt now. That debt doesn't just cost you money, it's costing options. It costs your peace. For some of you, it's costing sleep. It's costing mental space, emotional, spiritual. It's taking up residency. And the longer it fades in the background, the louder it becomes. So here's the fix. Step 1, pull all of your debt into one place, not a consolidation loan. Just pull it into one place so you'll know exactly what you're dealing with. You need to know every balance, every interest rate, every minimum payment, not in an app, put it on paper because visibility reduces the fear. Step 2, I want you to choose one debt to focus on, not all of them, just one. And it doesn't matter if it's the one with the highest interest rate, it doesn't matter if it's the one with the highest balance. Pick one. And the one that I will tell you to choose is the one that's causing the most pressure, not shame, pressure. The momentum matters more than perfection. So paying that one off and focusing on that is going to matter. It's going to give you confidence. It is that you need in order to see this thing through. Number 3, name the purpose of each payment. Minimum payments maintain. Extra payments create progress. So if you don't know which one you're making, you're defaulting. to the other one. Now, I want you to think this through and think about it this way. Your debt requires sequencing, not emotion. So random extra payments may feel good, but if you can become intentional with those extra payments, then it's going to change the outcome. What do I mean by that? Making a random payment towards a debt or a credit card, it'll lower the balance, but it's not going to really resonate with you. Whereas when you make a plan and you're intentional and then you set aside some money and you put it towards this one debt, that is going to give you clarity. It's going to change the outcome and it's going to give you control back. You see the difference? So I want to challenge you to stop letting the debt fade into the background. Today, I want you to list every debt that you have and put it in one place on paper. I want you to circle the one that is causing you the most pressure in your life. And I want you to reframe how you think about it. A lot of times we'll think that we're failing because of that debt. No, this is where you start taking control. This is where you start getting clarity. And this is where you start managing your money and stewarding it differently instead of it managing you. Debt freedom does not start with intensity, it starts with intention. Now, once debt is no longer background noise, most people think, okay, now I just need to stay consistent, right? And true, consistency will get there, but it's not automatic. And if it was automatic, then why do so many people keep restarting instead of just adjusting? That brings me to mistake number 8. So, mistake number 8 is expecting the budget to work without support. People expect that this budget that you're creating is going to magically change them. It's going to help keep them disciplined and focused and consistent. But y'all, a budget is just a tool. Tools don't create change, people do with guidance. Now, I think a lot of us were raised to believe that you handle your money quietly and independently, right? You don't put people in your business, especially when it comes to your money, right? You figure it out on your own. And needing help feels like a failure, especially if you are a Black woman. We're used to carrying responsibility. So when money feels hard, we internalize it. And we assume that we should just try harder and restart again. This is a cycle that I see so often with clients. And honestly, there's this new month, new motivation, new budget, and it works. I'm not gonna front, it works, but only for a few weeks. And then life happens. One slip turns into silence. And instead of adjusting, people quit. Not because they can't do this, but because they're doing it alone. And here's the part that people don't say out loud. They don't actually know what to change. They know something's off, but not what lever to pull, not what decision matters most. They don't know whether to push or to pivot. And that's not laziness, that's just a lack of direction. Here's the truth. Information doesn't create transformation. And if you can't have clarity without accountability, right? So then there's the isolation that you fall into, and that slows your progress. I think a lot of times people believe that support means that you're weak, and it doesn't. Support and realizing that you need support actually means that you are strategic in your stewardship. So here's the fix. Here's an opportunity for you to get honest without judgment. I want you to write down and name exactly where you're stuck. Don't be general here. Be very specific. Are you stuck? Is it like with your spending? Is it consistency? Is it with your decision making? Is it your follow through? Here's what's key. Naming the block is going to change everything, right? You can't fix what you don't know, so put a name to it. Step 2, or get eyes on your numbers, right? Not opinions, not social media advice. You need actual eyes on your actual numbers. Even one outside perspective can change the direction completely. And then step 3, stop restarting and start adjusting. Your budget is not static and it's not meant to be restarted. They're meant to be refined, right? They should be moving with your real life. And that refinement is going to require some feedback. So every time you restart, it's almost like you're throwing away the data that you need to pivot and make more wiser or better decisions. So stop restarting and just start adjusting. Having support is not a crutch. Again, it's a strategy. And the fastest progress happens when someone helps you to interpret what you're seeing and adjust in real time. Again, last point, budgets don't fail because people aren't trying. They fail because people try to change in isolation, and you were never meant to do this alone. So, listen, if you've made it this far, I want to say this so clearly. You don't need more information. You don't need another video. You don't need to start again. What you need is help applying this to your real numbers. Because seeing mistakes are so powerful, right? That's why you made it to this part of the video. But fixing them alone is where most people fail. And that's where you stall out, right? And that's exactly why we created the 90-day budget alignment sprint. It's for people who are done guessing. They're done restarting and they're ready to take everything you just learned and turn it into a plan that's going to fit and work with your real life. Listen, in 90 days, you don't just feel motivated, you feel clear. You know what to adjust, you know what to stop, and you finally trust the decisions that you're making with your money. If any part of this video felt uncomfortably accurate, if you saw yourself in more than one of these mistakes, that's not coincidence. Yo, that's your sign. This is the moment where clarity turns into action. And action is what changes outcomes. The next step for you is the sprint, not because you can't do this by yourself, but because you shouldn't have to do this by yourself. So join us. Let us align your money with your real life and stop repeating the same cycle.